Today is June 11, 2024. The interviewee is Betty Guttenplan. The interviewer is Judy Young. The interview takes place in Bayside, New York, in the USA. So thank you so much for giving your testimony to the Shoah Foundation about your life, Betty. It is so important for future generations to know what happened to Jewish people during the Holocaust, during the Shoah. My name is Judy Young, and I will conduct this interview with you, Betty Guttenplan, on June 11, 2024 in Bayside, New York. And we will conduct this interview in English. And the interview will have three parts. First, I will ask you to talk about your life before the Shoah, before the Holocaust. Then I would like you to speak about what happened to you during the Holocaust. And the last part of the interview, I would like you to talk about your life after the Holocaust. Okay?
All right.
Yeah, all right. So let's start with your life before the Holocaust. So please tell us when you were born, tell us about your family, and where you lived.
Okay. Can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. I was born on January 20th, 1924. And at that time, my name was Bert Fox. That was my name. Fox was my family name. I was a second child of my parents. I had a brother, 10 years older. In France, you had to be careful if you were Jewish and if you were not French. My parents were from Belgium, and they never had any paper. So we always rented apartment, furnished, that we could live in an emergency without furniture to be bothered with. So I went to school, and I had a very happy life there. My parents were loving, and my grandmother came to live with us when her husband died. So we had a rented apartment, and I always slept with my grandmother. We shared a bed. And I went to school. It was a happy life. My father used to sell goods. He was a peddler, if you want to put it frankly.
Okay.
And he had a friend who was driving the car because he never had a license and we never had a car. So life went nicely, softly, you know, my school day and all. And I had a very good friend to go to school. And we were very close. We used to walk to school together until the war came.
Betty, let me ask you how...
I was then 15 years old
Okay.
when the war came. So my father realized that the German was not the best thing to be close to. So we say, let's go to Brussels. So we just packed a suitcase and went to Brussels. I went to school, I was say 15, I went to school there. My mother put me to school, and what did we do? We were knitting socks for the soldiers. After a while, my mother took me out of school because there was no sense. And I don't remember what happened then. Oh yes, I found a job. I was good at sewing. I found a job for a sewing place. And after 2 days, they fired me. I was too slow. I wanted to do things so perfect, I was too slow. So I went home crying, and that was the end of my job. And we stayed there, I don't know how long we stayed there. Then we went back, I remember we went back to Paris. And until 1940, no, 42, 41, I think. In 1942 was the worst year for the Jews. The Nazis rounded up all the Jews they could find. And at that time, my father saw that, and he said, let's go. So we took, I don't know, he took a car. I never knew where he found this car. He never had a car. He never had a license. But his friend showed him before how to drive. So he stole a car. And we went to Royan. I don't know if you know the map of France. Royan is on the west coast. It's a beach. My uncle, my father's brother, was there with his wife and his two granddaughters. These two granddaughters were forced to marry Catholic men, hopefully that they will be saved. So we stayed with them a few days and then we left. But as soon as we left, somehow the Nazi came, rounded up my uncle and his family. My two cousins had just got babies. They gave the babies to Catholic family, and a day or two after, they were taken by the Nazi and sent to Auschwitz and never came back. One of my cousins was shot in the train going to Auschwitz because she was crying. She had so much milk from being in birth, it was very painful. So they shot her in the train. We know that by someone who was there. And after we went from Royan, we went down the southwest coast to Toulouse. It's a little town. We stayed there. We rented a room, one room for 2, 3, 4, 5 people with 2 beds. My brother was there. And we stayed there a couple of days, and then we left. We had hardly nothing to eat. My grandmother found a pound of flour, and she mixed that with water in a frying pan, and that was our dinner, lunch and breakfast. Then we took the car and we crossed the south of France from west to east. Yeah, from west to east. Alongside the Pyrenees. You know where the Pyrenees mountains are?
Yes.
Okay, alongside the Pyrenees to the Riviera over there. And we went up the Rhone Valley. The Rhone is a big river coming from the south way up to Lyon. So we went there and we drove to Annecy. It was a little town in Savoie, close to Switzerland, very close to Geneva. So my brother was there with his wife. His wife was Catholic. So we were there hiding in a room he found us for all of us. I don't know how many people. I know I slept with my grandmother for so long because we had no bed. And we stayed in Annecy quite a couple of years. It's a beautiful little town with a gorgeous lake and a beautiful beach. It's very well known. It's at the bottom of the Alps. Yeah, near Switzerland. It's beautiful over there. And we stayed there hiding for quite a few years. Yeah, and I found a job packing cuckoo club for Switzerland.
Oh, cuckoo clocks.
And then my father, then they let me go, I don't know why. Then my father sent me to sell insurance in the mountains. Now, a 16-year-old selling insurance in the mountain, the Savoie, is not easy. I sold one insurance, which was fake, of course. And then we stayed there. We stayed in Annecy a couple of years. Yeah, that's where my nieces were born, in Annecy. And after a few years, my father went back to Paris. He went alone. And then he couldn't stay away from Paris.
Betty, were the Germans still in
The
in
German
France?
was all over. The worst thing was when we were leaving Paris, I go a little back and forth. We crossed from west to east France. The center of France was so-called free, which means there were no German, which was a lie. They were full of Nazi. When we crossed there, all of a sudden we hear barking dogs behind. We are those Jewish German shepherd dogs behind, running after us, and we got so scared. Somehow, by the grace of God, there was a little stream with a tree trunk across. So the four of us, my father, my grandmother, and my mother and I, we jump on the tree across the river, hopping along. And in those days, we didn't have pants. We had pantyhose. And our legs were all bleeding from the tree, the roughness of the tree, hopping along across the river. And the dog, thank God, didn't go over the river or the tree. But that was the scariest thing, those barking dogs. I never liked German Shepherd from that day. So we crossed and we went, where we went after? Oh yeah, we slept, we didn't know where to sleep. At night, we found barns. So we
What did you find?
barns, where you keep the animals.
Oh, barns. Okay.
A barn,
Yeah, barns.
a barn.
Yes, yes.
We found barn. We opened the door, and we went there and slept on the hay among the cows and the chicken. The only good thing we could eat, we stole all the eggs, and we ate a lot of eggs. We stole them. And then we walked, and every time we found a barn, we went in and slept there with the cows. It was kind of smelly, but it was okay. Sleeping on the hay and eating raw eggs. I don't know how many times we ate raw eggs. And from there, where did we go from there? I can't remember when we were there, but I know somehow in 43 we went back to Paris. 42 was the worst year, 42, when they rounded up all the Jews in Paris, in a big like Madison Square Garden, in a big thing like that. We had one. They were all round up there, the Jews. And the children too. The little children were there with their parents. And it was so sad. They had those little children who had to go to the bathroom. There was no bathroom, so they had to go there in front of everybody. It was really And then they took those people and the children and shipped them to Drancy, who was a town where they round up all the Jews. From there to Auschwitz. So they were all gone to Auschwitz, including my two cousins and their parents. They all never came back. One branch of my family, at the very beginning of the war, an uncle, they left to Argentina. And they lived there ever after. And they're still there, the children.
So
But
you said that you
we
went...
never had the money to go anywhere. So we had to go all around France on foot, on car when possible, on stolen car. It was so, I was so skinny I couldn't eat.
Why couldn't you eat? Because there was no food?
And the scare got me stomach cramps. When you're so scared, you got cramps. And that was not funny. At that time, newspaper were a precious commodity, to put it this way.
Precious commodity for cleaning yourself?
Yes, cleaning yourself. We found newspaper walking around, we picked them up. It was like a crazy life. We couldn't even think straight. All we could think is running away and looking behind you, see if there was no Nazis following you or a dog. It was a crazy life, and we don't know how we survived it. But so many, most of my family went to Auschwitz. We were lucky, in a way.
So where were you when the war ended?
Huh?
Where were you when the war ended?
I was in Paris. When the war ended on June, my mother told me, the Americans are coming. That was June, the D-Day, June 5th or 6th. The Americans are coming, the Americans coming. She was so excited. And when they landed in Normandy.
Yes.
Yes.
And where were you?
Where
were you when they landed in Normandy?
In Paris.
In Paris, okay.
Yeah, before Paris, the worst thing I ever saw was a Nazi flag flying at the Elysee. It's like it's flying at the White House.
Right.
The Elysee, where the president lived. They had the Nazi flag flying there. That was heartbroken. And people were crying when they saw it. But then when the war ended, we were in Paris.
And what did you do next? The war ended. How did you celebrate?
I don't think we celebrate, not with food, we had no food. We just were happy. We were crying, and we were crying for people who didn't come back. Like many of my cousins went to Auschwitz. And yeah, that was where the war ended.
And what was next? How long did you stay in Paris? What did you do when the war ended?
We stayed in Paris. No, we always live in Paris. Well, when we went, in summer we went to Brussels, in Belgium, when a great-great-grandmother had a house there. So we stayed a summer there. But when we had some money, we went to the beach, to Trouville. It's on the west coast, a beautiful beach. But otherwise, we never went anywhere.
And what did you do after the war?
I went to work. When we came back, I went to work for a perfume shop in Paris, Place de l'Opéra. Yeah, the opera place, where the opera is. There were a few shops there, and there was a perfume shop, and I got a job there, measuring perfume in a bottle. And what's funny, we live in an apartment on the fourth floor, and they had a fair on the sidewalk, a big sidewalk, it's like a boulevard. It was when I was 19, 20, and we were walking with my friends, see the shop, the goods they had, and two young men stop us, and they say, "Weren't you in Nancy during the war?" And I'm looking at it, I said, "You're crazy. Of all Paris," he recognized me. And we talk, and we had a day, and we got married a few months later.
So he
And we came here.
He met you, your husband. Your husband. He met you then in Annecy.
No, his mother died there.
Okay.
His mother was taken. His father had died a long time ago from World War One.
Okay.
But so we came here we got married in 47, and we came here in 49.
Came here to the United States.
Yeah, with
okay.
$40. I had a cousin who lived on Central Park here, and she sponsored us for a short while. Then I had all kind of crazy job here. I work in the perfume on the belt. Remember that movie with the belt when she sold the candy?
Oh yes, with Lucille Ball.
Yes,
Lucille Ball.
that was
okay.
not putting label on perfume bottle. I wasn't fast enough, so they let me go. I got almost raped once in a hotel from, I don't remember what you call this hotel, for young men who came to the city and have no place to live. They have like a hotel.
I do not know.
YMCA.
Oh, YMCA, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I was cleaning bedroom there. That's when I almost got raped.
Wow.
But I didn't. I screamed my head off. And after that after that we couldn't find something going a job. So we went to an agency, and they told us, "Why don't you come a couple for a rich family of a house?" So we tried, and we found a job as a maid and butler in Scarsdale for a wealthy family. The man was very nice, but the woman wasn't so nice. So we stayed there, and I was working like a dog, cleaning and cleaning. And one day the woman would go in the kitchen, and she had stainless steel counter. You know what that is?
Yes, yes.
And she said, "There's a fingerprint there." She looked at me, "Take that off." A fingerprint. My husband was so mad. He went into a refrigerator. He took a bottle of milk and broke it at her feet. I remember the woman who used to do their laundry was there, and she laughed. She was a black woman, very nice. And we left. Well, she sent more gifts for us to come back. We never did. We found an apartment in Middle Village here.
So after that incident in
Yes.
the kitchen,
Yes,
we
left.
You left. Okay.
Yes, we found that apartment on High Harbor Road. It's in Middle Village, along Woodhaven Boulevard, around that. And unfortunately, my husband got sick, and he was such in pain. He used to bang his head on the wall from pain. he was in a hospital at, what's that hospital? It has a Jewish name.
I'm not
Yeah, the
sure.
hospital said. Anyway, he had a cancer.
Montefiore Hospital, maybe? I'm trying to think.
He had a brain tumor that they couldn't do anything about it. I thought he died. So I was left with 2 children, no money, and no husband. And a friend of mine, we used to work our children together when I lived, she told me to get in touch with Medicare or Social Security. They would help me. So I did, and I got the money for Social Security for the children and me to pay the rent. And that's what happened. Yeah. So I stayed there. No, I didn't work. I had the children. Yes, they went to school. And then one more, my friend told me, go, there's an organization, you should try it. I said, okay, what is it? It's PWP, Parent Without Partner.
Okay.
It was in Roslyn, at the hotel in Roslyn. So I went there. They were man and woman, trying to meet.
Do you remember what year that was? Do you remember what year that was that you went to Parents Without Partners?
47. Must be 59 or 60.
Okay, all right.
About. Yeah, I went there and I met my husband. And he came from a very Jewish family, which I never observed. But it was a great marriage. We 34 years we married. He was very good. He adopted my 2 girls. And he adopted them. And after several apartments, he decided we should have a house. So he bought a house in Port Washington. And that was very nice. And then I found a job in Brookville at the Association for Retarded Children as a bookkeeper. I was never good in math, but I took the job anyway, and I got great at it. I stayed there 34 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very nice. And then
I was
80 years old...
How did you find that job? How did you find that job?
I think in it's called the penny saver.
Oh, yes.
You know? Yeah,
I
that
do know.
job there. That's how I found it. Yeah. And I stayed there. I worked until I was 80. And I had lost my husband there. And when I was 80, I said, that's enough. So I sold my house and I moved here in 2004, I think. 2004. Yeah, it's going to be 20 years.
And you moved together with your daughter, or you moved here by yourself, or you moved here with Leslie, your daughter?
No, with my daughter. My other daughter was married then.
Okay.
Yeah, she had, my husband had given a nice little wedding. So now I moved here with Leslie. Yeah, I stayed there. It was nice here. But now they get so many rules. I don't know about the civil.
Okay.
But it's okay.
What rules they have that you don't like?
No, but the bench, that's what kills me. Took the bench out.
From in front of the building.
I have a cushion, put on the concrete, and sit on it. That's what I do. And nobody else does it. They don't want to sit on the concrete. But otherwise, I have a very nice neighbor. When they took Leslie to a doctor, when we couldn't get a cab, when they were not, remember they used to be 4-2 taxi?
Yes.
They're gone. There's no more taxi around here. But my other daughter, who lives in Westchester, she comes. She drives back and forth to take us to the doctor, to shopping, which is nice.
I want to ask you a few questions, Betty.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think that helped you and your family survive while you were in all these different places in France?
You mean survive the war?
Yes.
Survive from escaping from the Nazi,
Yes.
you mean?
Escaping from the Nazis.
Always walking away. Always walking away from them. When, if there was some place, you went away. I guess it's sheer luck. Sheer luck. And of course, staying in a little village in the Alps helps a lot. And my brother could feed us because he had friends in Switzerland, which is right there where we were, and they traffic in watches. It was not legal, but we got to eat, you got to eat. So he got us trafficking watches with his friend, and we could buy some food. My sister-in-law bought, she was Catholic, my sister-in-law, so she used to do the shopping. That's how we survive.
So
Sometimes it's sad to say, but you got to do bad things to survive.
Like what?
Well, like stealing food.
Mm-hmm.
When we were running away in France from one town to another, stealing food, which is not right, but we did it. We were stealing. So
do you think that what happened to you and your family and during the Holocaust, did it change the way that you were raising your children?
I would change the way I would have done it.
Did it change how you raised your children? Did you tell them the stories, and did you teach them some lessons about what you had?
Oh, you mean the children?
Survived? Your children, yes.
Well, they know all about it. But I don't think it changes them. You never can change her. She's very vocal. And she'll tell you what she thinks. And she does a lot of work on the computer for the Jewish cause. She's very good at the computer. And she's very good. You know Henry Louis Gates on PBS?
Yes.
She does the same thing. She had a couple of customers, and they were very impressed. They found those people where they came from and all. She's very good at that. At the other thing, she's not good. Like cleaning up, that's not her thing.
Okay, so who decided to share your story with the Shoah Foundation? Who decided to share it?
Leslie.
Leslie decided, and why?
She told me she didn't decide. She said, "Think about it. You should do it." She kind of pushed me.
Okay, so why did you agree to do it though?
And I said, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it twice, twice. I did it a few years ago in New York at the Ritz Hotel. They had things like that. I did a tape there too. She must have told you. I was interviewed, several years ago in Manhattan.
Okay. So what is your message? What message do you want to leave people to how to survive and how to cope with difficulties in life?
Do what you can in the most honest way you can. You know, sometimes you cannot be honest to survive. I don't mean killing people. I mean, you know, like stealing food, stealing newspaper, standing on the stand. That's what you do. You do what you have to in the best way you can. But I'm always against killing people. Like you see every day somebody gets shot. That disgusts me. You can't even go buy a loaf of bread, you may not return. That's the everyday news.
Well,
that upsets me.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Do you want us to speak to Leslie also? Do you want us to speak to Leslie also?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I wanted to find out if we could speak to Leslie and ask her a couple of questions also. What do you think about that?
What about Leslie?
If we can ask Leslie a couple of questions also about her view about what you went through and about the Shoah, about the Holocaust. Could we speak to Leslie? Would you like us to ask Leslie a few questions?
Oh, she knows all about it.
Okay.
She knows everything. She knows all about family, my daughter's mother-in-law was taken to Auschwitz. Yeah, Suzanne. She was taken. Oh, she knows all about. She knows more than I do.
So can we invite her to speak to us now?
Hmm?
So can we invite her to speak to us now also? Is it okay with you if we ask Leslie?
Oh, sure.
Okay, Leslie.
She'd love it.
Couple more questions I would like to ask you.
Yeah.
What was your name when you were born?
Bert Fox. B-E-R-T-H-E. Bert.
Okay.
That's my first name. And my last name was Fox. F-O-K-S.
F-O-K-S. Okay. And did you have any nicknames?
Hmm?
Did you have any nicknames?
No.
No? They just...
No middle name, no nickname.
Okay. And where were you born and what year were you born?
In Paris, 1924.
What month?
January 20th,
Okay.
1924. I was born in the 9th arrondissement. It's like a section. You know, in Paris you have arrondissement,
What?
like you have Bayside, you have Flushing, you have the same thing over there, but it's by number.
Right.
I was born in the 9th arrondissement.
Okay. And what was your father's name?
Maurice, M-A-U-R-I-C-E. Maurice.
And was he born in France?
No, he was born in Liège, L-I-E-G-E, in Belgium.
Okay.
It's a town close to the German frontier. Belgium and Germany are close. So he's from Belgium.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your mother's name and where was she born?
My mother, what was it about? I don't know. I think she was born in Brussels. They were Belgium. They all, so she was born in Brussels on February 17. I forgot the year. She knows the year.
That's okay. And what was her name? What was your mother's name?
My mother's name Esther.
You remember her last name?
E-S-T-H-E-R. E-S-T-H-E-R, Esther.
Okay.
Here they say Esther. No, it's Esther.
Esther. And you mentioned you had a brother. Did you just have one brother?
Yeah, Felix
Felix.
Fox.
Felix Fox.
Yeah.
And what
We
did-
never had any middle name.
Okay. I mean, it's, I don't have a middle name either. And what did your father do in Paris? What was his occupation?
My father,
Yes.
peddler.
Peddler. And what kind of things he peddled?
Carpet,
Carpet.
rugs.
Rugs. So he was like what we would call a salesperson?
It was a peddler.
A peddler.
He had a friend who had a license and a car. So she drive and he peddled the rugs. You know, there were 9 children in my father's.
Mm-hmm.
So, and their mother was a widow. So with 9 children, a widow, you know, they had no education to speak of, but they knew, they were smart. So they just, all of them, they only could peddling. Couldn't do anything else.
Did your mother work also? Or
No,
she
never
just-
worked.
Okay. And where did you live? In an apartment? And
In an always rented apartment, furnished apartment, rented.
okay.
So we could leave whenever we want.
And did you move around a lot?
Hmm?
Did you move around a lot from apartment to apartment?
Not a few, but not that much, no.
Okay. And tell me about the schools that you went to.
The what?
The schools. Tell me a little
Oh,
bit
the
about
school.
the schools that you went to.
Oh, the school I went to? The regular public school. And I become friend with another schoolmate. I used to pick her up at the father's store. He has a shoemaker store. And we walked to school together. And we became very close friends. And then when the thing came with the Nazi and the war, they gave us, you know, our passport had Jew stamp on it.
Right.
So they gave us, managed to get false passport with not Jew written on it. They kind of saved our lives. So that was very important.
So you got papers that did not say that you were Jewish.
They were Catholic.
Yes.
Yeah, my best friend was Catholic. And I remember I went to watch her at the first communion when they walk around the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling my mother, why can't I do that? Why can't I do I don't know why I couldn't get a nice dress and walk like a little bride. But that was my best friend, and they saved our lives. Our parents saved our lives with a false passport.
So
They were good people.
yeah. So the false passports then help you
They didn't have...
when
no,
you went into hiding because
they
you had
didn't-
these
yeah.
papers.
Jewish was not stamped on it,
Right.
no.
Right. So that was a big step for
Yeah.
saving your life.
Four passports. My parents, my grandmother who lives with us, and me. 5. And we all had different name on it. I was not my mother's daughter.
Oh,
I was a friend somehow, I don't know. But we made it with that. My brother was almost, he went to Algeria through Spain, but on the way, he stopped at the cafe. He was alone to have something to eat. And there was other men there eating. And all of a sudden there's a couple of Nazis who came in. You know what they did? They had all the men standing up and pull their pants down.
And why
And
was
they
that?
stopped just before my brother.
Wow.
That was a luck, because the luck of the Irish.
Luck.
That was a luck. He was, but he had a rough time walking through Spain. It's hilly, the Pyrenees chain of mountains. He made it on foot alone.
How old was he at that time?
He was 10 years older than me. When I was 15, he was 25.
And when did you meet him again? When did you see him again?
Yeah, well, after the war, yeah, he came back to Paris, where we were.
And how did he find you?
I,
did he
I don't
find
know.
you?
I don't know the fun. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Was there any special place in Paris that people... Was there any special place in Paris that people could ask about
I don't
relatives?
know. I was young. I was overprotected. My parents never told me anything, which was a big mistake. But they overprotect me. I didn't know anything.
Why do you think it was a big mistake that they didn't tell you anything?
I don't know. I should have been more aware of things.
Aware of things that were happening during the Holocaust, or aware of things?
Yeah, well, I knew about the Holocaust and that, but other thing they wouldn't tell me. Like I never knew what my father did for a living. I never knew until I was much older.
Why do you think they never told you?
I don't know. They were overprotecting me. My mother picked me at school when I was 12 years old. She came to pick me up at lunchtime because we had an hour and a half lunchtime in school. She used to pick me up every day just to cross a few streets.
When you were in school, did you... you said that you had Christian friends, but did you ever feel that there was any anti-Semitism when you were in school?
Yeah, I don't know. I just was living happily ever after. I was my best friend, and I was doing well in school until I got sick, and I missed this test, the end of the year test.
Mm-hmm.
That was a test you must take to be on a higher class, a higher grade. I missed it. So I had to do the whole year all over again. But then after that's when we went to Brussels at the beginning of the war.
Tell me a little bit more about the experiences that you had. What were your experiences, in hiding? Were you scared? Did you feel protected by your parents? What did you think about what was going on?
About being overprotected?
What did you think about what was going on during the war?
Why don't they tell me more? I was upset that they don't tell me more. But I couldn't get anything out of him. Like when I say, I say, what did that did for a living? Oh, don't worry about it. That's what I got as an answer. No, my brother, who is 10 years older, knew it all. He knew it all.
Were you scared at any time?
He got a job as a salesman for a company who was in a doorway, a little Jewish company in a doorway selling goods. He started to help them, sell them, and they became big, and he made a lot of money, my brother.
Was it?
He made selling clothes in the country to the farmer. A lot of farmer. He went into the field, the beet field, beets, the vegetable beet, the beet field. He worked there. It was very rough, but the farmer loved him. He was very handsome. He was handsome, and he had a knack with a woman. He measured them and all. And he made a lot of money.
Was this before the war or after the war?
Hmm?
Was it before the war or after the war?
After.
After, okay.
After the war. During the war, he was like hiding, running away. And he was in Algeria with the American. That's where he learned his English.
Nigeria, in Africa?
Yeah.
How did he get there?
Well, through Spain.
Okay.
He crossed Spain, and then you take a little boat to cross the Mediterranean to Algeria.
Algeria?
Yeah, Algeria.
No, I thought you...
Yeah,
okay.
Morocco, Algeria,
Okay.
Tunisia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think saved your family during the Holocaust? What saved you? What was the main thing?
What?
What saved you
Oh.
during the Holocaust? What do you think?
Well, in hiding. When we were in the Alps, in a little town, in a little village we were, in a little room that we rented from two old ladies, and that's where we stay. And yeah, we stayed there in Annecy. It's a beautiful little village, very pretty. It has even had a gorgeous lake, a casino, a little beach, but we were hiding in a little room behind. And we stayed there a few years.
So it helped that you got papers that showed that you were not Jewish, right?
Hmm?
You had papers, passport and papers that showed that you were not Jewish.
I don't remember. I can't remember.
Okay.
All I can remember is what walking my brother and his wife had a baby, and I was walking my little niece on the carriage along the lake. But I don't remember about the paper and all that. They never told me much. They were hiding a lot of things from me. I don't know why they didn't want me to get upset, worry, or I was overprotected, which was a big mistake. But such is life.
So what advice would you give to your children how to survive if something like this happens again? Because there is a lot of anti-Semitism rising right now.
Well, you got to work. If you have the main thing is to have some money to have a room to sleep. So you got to work. That's what I say, you got to work. So they work. My older daughter worked for Staples for many years. Now she's retired. And Leslie worked for Luxottica. It's in Port Washington. She worked many years there. It's an eyeglass frame company. It's an Italian company. All the frame I meet in Italy, and they sell in a big warehouse. But they moved to Georgia. So she worked there a long time. And then she also worked at Staples.
When was the first time that you heard about your mother's experiences during the Holocaust?
Maybe when I was, I don't know, somewhere between ages 9 and 15. I don't exactly remember when. But I always grew up with stories.
Stories from whom?
My mother.
Okay. And what were those stories and how did they affect you?
It didn't really affect me, just basic knowledge. I knew she was a Holocaust survivor. I knew about the camps, not as extensively as I do now, but I knew a basic general of the camps, and they killed 6 million and all that. And but you know, she told me about the escape, and she told me about going back to Paris with Nazis on the train with guns. And I said, how could you do that? So, you know, stories like that.
I understand. How could you do that? So you grew up here in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm born
Okay,
here,
I
yeah.
do what?
How could you have gone to Paris on the train with Nazis holding guns?
What?
You told me you went to Paris,
Yeah.
back to Paris,
Yeah,
at the end of the war.
yeah,
And there were Nazis on the train.
yeah.
So I asked you, how can you go on a train with the enemy?
Well, sometimes the enemy comes after you sit in the train.
Yeah,
And if you leave, it looks suspicious.
I see, okay. That
So-
makes sense.
Are your mother's experience?
I remember to the day I die, the smell of the Nazi uniform. Do you believe this? Their uniform had a smell I never forget. It's true, the texture.
Mm.
It has a funny smell, and I remember the smell.
Does your mother's experiences in the Holocaust affected you in any way about what you are thinking, what you are doing, what you're?
Only in the perspective that I wanted to find my family, ancestors, because I knew her family because she educated me of who's who. So I knew her family pretty well. But my birth father died when I was 9 months old, so I never knew him. And I didn't know anything about him except the names on the marriage certificate. That's all I knew. So that started me in genealogy about 2011. And that I discovered eventually my whole paternal family, living and deceased, hundreds of them. And then through that, I went to research her family, and I found a whole branch in Australia from her father's mother's line. So I have family both sides, France, Netherlands, Belgium, South Africa, Australia, Israel.
Holland.
I said Netherlands, the UK, and then states in Florida, Virginia, and I never knew any of that. I grew up on her side, my first cousins and their children and grandchildren. My first cousins are now in their near 81, and they live in Paris, so I always knew them from the day I was born. And I went to France, actually, when I was 5 years old, going in the Eiffel Tower.
Let me tell you a little story which has nothing to do with me, but when we left Paris and went to Royan, and we met my uncle, my father's brother, with his wife and 2 daughters. Their 2 daughters, I remember I told you, just had a baby. They married Catholic men, hopefully they'll be saved. They were not saved. The children of the 2 families grew up Catholic. When one of them was 18, the woman told her she was not Catholic, she was Jewish. She sent her to England to a Jewish family. And she stayed there, got married, and she became she was Jewish then. And she made a lot of speech in British colleges. And just lately, she was noticed, and she was invited to the coronation of King Charles III.
No.
I said, that was interesting. And we talked, she talked. Yeah, she has a family of her own there, but it's not that. And she was brought up Catholic, and then when she was 18, she said she's Jewish. That must be a shock for a child.
Absolutely, absolutely. Leslie, how was the decision made about sharing your mother's story with the Shoah Foundation?
When the U.S. Holocaust Museum, I've been online on the website, it was going on a traveling road show, and New York was one of the stops. So I told my mother about it, and I said, do you want to go? And she said, yeah, let's go. So it was at the Hilton Hotel in Manhattan, and a lot of exhibits, a lot of people. And we went, walking around, and then they had a room for the video interview like this. And right at the entrance, I said, do you want to do it? And I said, you don't have to. And she said, yes, I do. So she went in, and I stayed outside, and it was like a 13-minute interview. It's online. And that was, So.
But that was not the Shoah Foundation?
No, it was the U.S. Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And so I...
Yeah, actually, I went to Washington. I visited the Holocaust Museum.
Oh, yeah, the shoes.
It was the Jew,
We
it was my
saw
husband.
that'll stick in your mind forever.
So
And we
very-
also had them look up records.
Very
for us.
impressive.
We had them look up records. You were allowed, I think, 2 or 3 records per person because of a lot of people. And so they got some records for us.
So how was the decision made to share the story with the Shoah Foundation?
I saw the invitation, looking for people. I asked her about it. I emailed you, and she said, yeah, let's, So, because I told her there's 55,000 others who were even worse than you. They were in the camps. So they had a lot more trauma than you had trauma, but I think the people who survived the camps, I believe, had worse.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't know how she survived on the road, all the 3 or 4 years, and not being able to go to school, not being able to have friends. I can't imagine
The
it.
worst was still walking from west to east in France, crossing in the mountains. The center of France is mountains. That's where we had the stream and the tree and hopping. That was the worst. Crossing. We were all ragged up. We were disgusting looking.
So I have a last question for both of you. First, for you, Betty. What advice would you leave for future generations about not repeating what happened to the Jewish people during the Holocaust? What advice would you give? And then the same question to you. First, Betty, what do you think? What should we do? What our generation should do for the future generations so this kind of horrible things would not be repeated?
Well, the anti-Semitism is sky high all of a sudden in this country. And that's not good. Look at all the colleges, what happened in colleges with the Jewish people.
So,
It never stopped. It never stopped, and I don't think it never will. There will always be some place an anti-Semitism place. There always has been.
what do you think?
I
Leslie?
think, okay, I got a couple of good ideas. First of all, I know not every single state of all the 50 states teach the Holocaust. I know some states are required to, New York, New Jersey, California, Florida, and a few others, but not all 50 states. That's number one. I think if children learn tolerance and a 5th or 6th grade course in comparative religions or comparative cultures or something like that, they would be more educated and more accepting. Because if you don't, I feel if you don't teach the Holocaust or any kind of depth of that, because most classes in they teach World War II. Poland invaded Germany invaded Poland September 1st, but that's about it. They're just the basics. They don't go deep. Of course, there's a time in class, but I think if children don't learn anything about the Holocaust or just very little, and they go off to college and they have a Jewish roommate, they're not going to know how to be friends with them, know how to learn their culture, and vice versa. And I think, if you have a Jewish roommate and they talk about Yom Kippur, you're going to say, what's that? I mean, just basic stuff that I wish...
It'll never stop. There's always be some anti-Semitism someplace.
And I grew up not very religious. My stepfather's two brothers were more observant than we were, but we never had a Christmas tree. We just didn't. A lot of Jewish families do, because I think they want their children to fit in, and but we never did. I always knew I was Jewish. I always knew, I guess we were different to a certain extent, but to educate myself about other religions, I learned about Christianity, Christmas, Easter, and all that stuff. I actually read online. I know what they do, and but they don't teach the Holocaust in the school. That's the main problem. And I'm thinking 4th, 5th grade would be the right age where they're aware of the world, because younger they don't know all the there's Europe, there's Africa, there's Asia. But by the time they're 5th or 6th grade, you already met children in diverse groups, diverse ethnicities. And I went to public school here in the city, in Flushing, and we had when I grew up, it was 1/3 Italian, 1/3 Irish, and 1/3 Jewish. So I was already aware of other groups. And on Wednesdays, I remember all the Catholic kids were allowed to go to confirmation, they call it, CC, whatever, and I was left in school. And at first, I didn't know why, but then later I found out. And but I don't remember learning the Holocaust even in high school in a deep, educated sense. Mm-hmm. Most of the knowledge I have is from the computer and my mother. But I don't remember taking like 3 weeks of lessons of the Holocaust. I think they must have mentioned it in New York. We have to learn it, but they didn't go like the camps, the 27 notorious camps. We didn't go. We knew about Auschwitz, but we didn't go down the list of the other camps. And so. But I think they should start teaching comparative religion or comparative cultures, or even the Holocaust in 5th or 6th grade. So by the time they get to high school, they're already, oh yeah, you're Jewish, Sabbath, you're supposed to do this,
Anyway.
So.
Well, thank you so much, Betty, for willingness to share your story.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't fill you in more, but I don't know. I just told you what I knew, but that's about all.
What you told us is your story, and what's important is your story, and your story is kind of unique because you were not in camps, but you still had the difficulties of hiding your Jewishness and running from place to place, and so you have an important part in this story. And what is interesting, that different people in different countries went through the Holocaust in many different ways. So thank you so much for sharing, and Leslie, thank you for pushing your mom to share this with us.
And another thing, my first cousins, her brother's children, their children, my second cousins, they all grew up Catholic, but they do know about their Jewish ancestry.
Who is that?
Dominique and Michelle, they all know their like 25% Jewish or whatever. And one of my second cousins on Ancestry.com came up, I think it was 40% Jewish because of her father and my mother's father, her brother. So, you know, they all know they're Jewish. They don't practice it, but they're aware. Mm-hmm. And even my second cousin's children, my third cousins, who are in their teenagers now, they also know they have Jewish ancestry. So it's not a secret in our family.
There's some Jewish blood in there.
Yeah, they're all very well aware.
Yeah.
And, no.
Good. Well, thank you, and thank you. So
it's funny, when you're Jewish, there's something inside you that stays. I never forget my brother who married a Catholic, who was like a sister to me. I love her. And their daughter, one of their granddaughter just had a baby. And when she came with a baby, I was there, so that my brother's 90th birthday, I was there. And when she came with the baby, my brother first thing asked, is he circumcised?
no.
And he was not religious, my brother, but that is, and she said no. He was very upset. But he was not religious, but he was still Jew.
Well, we are not taping anymore, right?
Don't.
Tell us what's in that picture. It's a beautiful picture of you and your mother skiing. Can you tell a little bit about what you remember about that ski trip?
The ski, no, I just remember the hotel, and that's all. I don't remember. Why I don't remember? Why?
That's okay. When did you learn how to ski?
Oh, my brother taught me. My brother used to ski a lot with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law lent me her outfit to ski, so I could start to learn. So my brother told her, give her your outfit because she can learn to ski. So she did. So my brother took me on top of a hill in the Alps. And he said, now you go down. And he left me. And I had to go down. And as you go down, the worse you go, the faster it goes. So after a while, I closed my eyes and let myself fall. But it was fun. Then I was better. I learned to ski a little bit. It was nice. And skating. I used to love sport. In France, they used to give 2 weeks vacation every winter to people to go skiing. They were very good skiing there.
Do you remember maybe where it was, what the place that picture was taken?
No, I didn't go skiing because we didn't have the money to pay for the train and the hotel. But my brother went. He worked hard and he made money, so he went.
And he took you and your mother, it looks like, because you're in that picture with your mom.
But yeah, I remember he used to go to the Alps to ski every winter. They all did. So many people went to ski in winter. They had their vacation. Winter vacation, and then they had the summer when they went to the beach.
Right, right.
Every night my grandmother used to say a prayer, and she always had her hand on her head, and she said, Boho, Ato, Adonai, and I thought it was so funny.
Because
every night she used to say a prayer.
Hair. So, what do you remember about your grandmother? What do you remember? We are showing a picture of your grandmother and
it's her great-grandmother.
And your great-grandmother and your grandmother. So what do you remember?
About my grandmother?
Yes. What else do you remember?
She used to spoil me rotten.
Good. That's what grandmothers are supposed to do.
Oh, she used to do everything for me. When after dinner, we washed dishes by hand at that time. And my mother said, come on, you dry. My mother wash, my grandmother wash, my mother dry, and I put away, yeah. I always had cramps. I always had cramps not to do the job. I always had to go to the bathroom to get away with it. And my grandmother didn't say anything. She did my job. Oh, she did my bed, make my bed. On Sunday, she used to bring me breakfast in bed. And I was in my teen. Yeah, she really spoiled me. She was so good.
So that's a good memory then.
Yeah.